Hello, welcome to Empowering Women. I'm Christine Lucas, and today I have the honor of speaking with Anna Huckabee Tull. Anna is an award-winning singer-songwriter and an accomplished psychologist who has to have one of the world's most fascinating, inspiring, and uplifting professions. People from all over the planet commission Anna to create original, one-of-a-kind songs of love, growth, loss, birth, and celebration to honor some of life's most meaningful passages. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What causes you to gravitate towards writing songs for others?
So I had put out a couple of albums that were just totally autobiographical, very, very autobiographical. And so I think I was sort of feeling like, well, I've said what I needed to say, or these songs have helped me get clearer about what I wanted to get clearer about. And it was just about that time that a woman came up to me at the end of a concert and said, "Do you do songs on commission? Do you ever write songs for somebody else?" And it's interesting because this woman that came to me has turned out to be a very famous author of this book called Difficult Conversations. And at the time, it just was so far from my thinking of, well, how would you ever do that? How would you write for somebody else? That I just said, no, I don't do anything like that. And she said, "I think you do."
Oh, interesting.
So anyway, the first song that I ever commissioned was with her. And I mentioned her book just because it's so interesting to me that she has become world renowned as a co-author of this book about what it means to have a difficult conversation. Mm-hmm. And I think in a way, all of the songs that I've done, or almost all of them, speak to what it means to have a deeper kind of conversation with somebody through music.
That's interesting because a song is almost like an invitation to have a conversation.
Yeah,
It's something that maybe
exactly
people
right.
can't say with words. Excellent.
Yeah.
So what's different about creating a song for just one person versus creating for yourself?
It's a totally different thing. And for me, it's the most fun thing because the model that most people use is they write a song and then they try to find an audience for it. They shop it around, they do all that work. And the model that I work with is the exact opposite of that. It's like there's one person, and my job is to listen so carefully to what that one person wants and help bring that to life in such a specific way that when I perform it for them for the first time when they hear it, my goal is for them to go, "Holy cow, how could you possibly have done that? That's exactly what I wanted."
Right.
So
yeah.
it's a really different experience. And then once I've gone to the studio and recorded it, that song is then available for me to share with anybody I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
sure other people can relate to it as well.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing. It's interesting that you say that because what I'm writing is so specific. It's like one person wanting to say one thing to one other person. So on the one hand, how could it mean anything to anybody else? But you're exactly right. There's this thing that happens that's sort of like, what I'm always looking for is the intersection of what is this really specific story, but what's totally universal about what this person is saying or trying to say. And when I hit it, I can feel it. And those are the songs that kind of fly the farthest when I put them out there, when I make them available on the website.
So what kind of people tend to seek you out?
I would say almost everybody that would be the kind of person that would commission a song, because that's kind of a strange thing to do.
Well, like what are some examples of songs that are reasons that people would commission?
Well, some are very straightforward, like it's my daughter's wedding and I want to dance the dance with her, I want a song for that dance, or this is our first grandchild and we want a song that could be a lullaby for that. And then some of them are way out there. Some of them are like, I did a song for a tribe in Ghana, Africa.
How did that come about?
That was a really interesting one. That was somebody pretty local who had inherited some money, and she had decided what she wanted to do was return to this village in Africa where almost all of the parents in this village had died of AIDS. And almost all of the grandparents in this village were suffering from something called river blindness because their water supply was so tainted. And so it's this village of blind elders and these really young kids who have to walk an hour each way to get water.
Sure.
And she decided to use her inheritance to put in a freshwater well.
Oh, great.
And then she came to me and said, "I want to have a ceremony when they put this well in. I want to have a song that would be simple enough that I could teach it to these kids and these elders,
that's nice.
but that would be beautiful enough that would have some lasting value to them." So I created something that was pretty simple, but it was sort of like a round. There are three parts to it. And
A sing-along type of song, great.
And the really cool thing about that song in particular is that I think that was about 7 years ago that I did that. And she has shared with me that still, 7 years later, every day in the morning, these kids go to school and they salute their flag and then they sing that song.
Oh, wow. That's so amazing.
Yeah, it's a really
to be able to
incredible-
touch so many people. That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your unusual business model, where you said that after a song is commissioned, then you also can play it for the public.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Yeah, so it's sort of a business model on its ear to the way that most people do it. I sort of already referenced that a little bit, but I think the piece that's really interesting is the kind of person who would commission me, who is somebody that's kind of brave and willing to try something kind of different, and also maybe is either familiar enough with my work or clear enough that they just really need a song, that they're willing to take a chance because they're actually, they're paying me up front half of the price tag of this thing, having heard nothing. Like I haven't
It's a leap
interviewed
of
them.
faith, it is.
It really is. And so what happens is I feel really valued and well compensated and maybe more than that, I feel like the person that's come to me has put a really specific kind of trust in me because they know what they want and they don't know how to make it come into words.
Sure. Has that ever backfired, or have you ever had people not like the outcome of it?
Twice.
Oh, no.
So I've done it for like
well, that's
15
good.
years. So that's a pretty good
That's
hit
a pretty
ratio.
good ratio.
And actually both of those are kind of interesting too, in that I can think of one in particular right now where 90% of the time people either say, don't even change a word, or, oh, there's just this one line, can you fix that?
Sure.
But there was this one time where someone said, wow, that is nothing like what I thought you were going to do at all. That's just, I don't know what this song is. This does not speak to me at all. So I was, as you can imagine, horrified. But I just said, okay, I have to listen closely. There's obviously something I missed, so let's go back over it, tell me again. And it turned out it was something pretty simple. There was something she had said that made me think she was looking for something really heavy and speaking to the pain of where she'd come from. And in fact, she was giving me that as background and really wanted something very uplifting, but I missed it. So in that case, that song just landed completely on the cutting room floor, and I just started over and started from scratch again. And I liked the first one, but I loved the second one, and she did too. So
what do you do for your research in order to get the information that you need, background on a person?
It happens in the sort of 2 hours that I meet with them for an interview. I can ask them to bring things, and sometimes they do, but much more than data, what I really need is to be in the presence of that person and sense their energy. There's almost kind of like, it's hard to explain, but it's like if I were interviewing you and I were talking to you, there's this moment where I can feel this, what I would call kind of like an energetic arc of what they're saying. It's not about the facts or the data or anything that I would research really. It's sort of like, oh, I can feel it. I feel the vibe, whatever you want to call it, of what they're talking about. And something in me just kind of jolts. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
And they could talk on for another 2 hours or they could leave right then.
But when
either way,
you know.
I'm like, oh, okay, I've got that. I think I've got that thing.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
there is kind of a moment.
I read on your website a story about you commissioned a song or you wrote a song for a young woman who is moving to China.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this was a gal who had decided to join the Peace Corps. And she was older, I think she was maybe 35, and she hadn't ever met the man of her dreams, and she kind of was like, what am I doing sitting around? I'm a school teacher in Denver. Why don't I just open a new chapter in my life? So her parents were the ones that came to me, and they said, we want to surprise her. We're going to go over to China, where she was, had just joined the Peace Corps, and we're going to give her an iPod as a gift. They were relatively new things at that time. And there's only going to be one song on the iPod, and that's going to be this song that we've commissioned for her. And so in that case, I actually went on, she had a blog, so I went on and kind of got little snippets of, well, how does she talk about this, and what's this experience like? So that was one of the most lighthearted, fun ones that I've ever done. It's a really silly, playful song about what it means to go to an entirely different place and open yourself up and start over in a way.
What was her reaction like when she heard it?
She was over the moon. I think I'm trying to remember if they told her, if they just said, listen to this song, or if they had given her a little preamble. But either way, she's this person that, this will give you an example of her reaction, because she has had pictures of herself in lots of different countries doing a cartwheel. That's the kind of person she is. So she was very cartwheely about the song. And happily, she ended up coming back to the U.S. when her stint was completed, and meeting the man of her dreams, who she's with now. And a lot of parents who have kids going into the Peace Corps email me and say, can I forward this song onto my kid
because they can relate. Again, we were talking
there's
about
that
before.
universal quality.
That's so interesting. So can you tell us the story about the time you were flown to D.C. to play for the largest gathering of Lou Gehrig's disease?
Yeah.
What was that?
That was the biggest audience I ever played for, and that was a song that was commissioned by a guy who has Lou Gehrig's disease, or it's also called ALS. And he had contracted this disease at a pretty young age, and his daughter was, I think, maybe 8 or 9 when he got it. And he and his wife had decided, we're not going to tell our daughter about this disease until she gives us some kind of indication that she is curious.
Sure.
And unfortunately, the disease progresses really quickly. It just makes all of your muscles not able to move. So she never did ask. And he had reached a point where he couldn't speak at all. But he had the ability with the retina of his eye to point at one letter at a time.
Oh my goodness.
And create emails over a period of hours and hours. So I did an interview with him. Most interviews, as I said, take like 2 hours. This one took, I think, maybe 3 months.
Oh, wow.
I would ask him a question.
Wow.
Yeah, and it would be a long time before I would get an answer.
Commitment.
But it was fascinating. It's a fascinating thing to hear what's inside the mind of somebody who they really don't have a body anymore.
They can't communicate.
It's
they can't.
all thinking all day long. So he had some pretty incredible things to say. When I finally got the song written, he was able to share that with his daughter. And I recently put on a concert that was actually sponsored or put together by Empowering Women. And this was one of the songs that I performed there.
So I actually believe we have a clip of that. Let's take a look at that.
So this is the song I want to share with you, is this song that Andy and I created together. These are mostly his words and me turning it into a song. I really thought he was going to want a song about this disease, but he didn't. He wanted a song about his health, so his daughter could remember what it was like when he was healthy. And I've only performed this song in public a handful of times. And I was just thinking the last time I performed it was a few months ago, and that was at Andy's funeral. So this song goes out to Andy, wherever he is, and to his daughter, who he referred to as Bright Eyes. Bright eyes, 1,000-watt smile, bright skies of the Coronado, miles and miles of sailing out on the bright sea, sailing along, my bright, bright-eyed girl and me. It was like nothing to be sailing along, watching you laughing, and find myself laughing and strong for you. Pushing you on a swing, holding you close and then setting you free. The simple things, what time is taking, the hugs I can't offer you as I watch this body wasting. It was like nothing to lift you to the sky. It was like everything to see me through your bright, bright eyes. altar now. I will love you long past my last breath of air. God does not give us the burdens we deserve, but the ones we can bear. So watch for me, eternally feel for me in the passing breeze. One day I'll be sailing free right beside you, and you will see with your bright eyes and your 1,000-watt smile under bright skies. You'll see the never-ending miles and miles of my love out on life's sea, sailing beside you eternally, my bright-eyed girl, my bright-eyed girl, my bright-eyed girl, and me. Thank you.
Wow, what an amazing clip of such an incredibly moving song. So you also wrote a song for a little boy that was dying. Can you tell us a little bit about
Yep,
that?
that was a mother that was, she's one of my, what I call midnight Googlers. I think she was just somebody up Googling and kind of stumbled upon my website. And she wrote and said she had a little 4-year-old boy
Aw.
who had a month to live. And she said, I'm looking to create a song for his memorial, which is a really hard thing for a
Wow.
mom to be thinking about. But she said,
Goodness.
I have this fantasy that maybe there's some way that we could get it finished in time that I could play it for him so he could hear it before he dies, but I've been told he only has a month to live. And so I just had one of those intuitive hits that was like, he doesn't have a month to live.
You felt longer?
Nope, I felt shorter.
Shorter? Oh, wow.
I didn't say that to her, but I
No,
just
of
thought,
course.
I'm going to do this and I'm going to drop everything. And she did not have a lot of money. I called in a lot of favors from musicians, et cetera. I just dropped everything and I wrote this song. And the thing that was really interesting to me about the song is that she had said that this illness that he had, it was a kind of cancer, was one that this little boy's father's sister had and had died at roughly the same age. And she said, he's starting to say things to me that are reassuring. He's saying, I'm going to be okay after this is all over. And she said, I need to stop him from saying that because I know that's what kids say right before they die and I'm not ready for him to go. And so I've been telling him, don't say that, don't say that.
Aww.
And again, I had this sort of intuitive hit, which is, okay, I want to help you with this. And so I didn't do it directly. I worked into the song this idea that she is able to hear him saying this. She's able to, I'm getting choked up thinking about it.
Wow.
That it was a way of a mother saying to her son, I hear you saying goodbye to me, and I'm going to let you say what you need to say. So I worked it into the song. I rushed it to her house. I sent her a rough recording of it, just sort of a sample of what it was going to sound like in the studio. And she was completely blown away. And she said,
Sure.
I need, I'm going to play him even this rough version because I don't know how much time he has. So she shared it with him and was able to have a really lovely kind of completion conversation with him.
You gave her a voice.
Yeah, that's the incredible thing when you can help someone say what they need to say and aren't sure how to do it. And there's a really touching, interesting couple of codas to this story. And one is because I was operating on this different timeline in my head, I was rushing, and she said, now I've got this, video, this recording that you sent me over the internet, but I don't have the actual disc, and I don't know why, but I really want to hold that thing in my hands. I want to hold a real recording in my hands. So I rushed, and I recorded it in the studio, and I had it overnighted to her house. And she called me a few hours later and she said, I don't know why, but I just felt like I had to be holding that. And she said, it was a Thursday afternoon, the doorbell rang, I opened the door, there he was, I opened up the package, I went into my son's room and I said, it's here. And he died.
Oh, wow.
They were both just,
wow.
for some reason, it came to represent something far more even than what it was. So she wrapped her arm around him and showed him that it had arrived.
What a gift.
Yeah. And the second thing that was really beautiful about that story is that they had spent so much money on his health care that she wasn't really in a position to pay for a price to cover. And even though I had called in a lot of favors, there are real expenses with creating a studio finished song. So I had never done this before, but I have this thing on my website that's called Song of the Month, and every month I put out a song and people can download it for free. And this time I just said, if anybody wants to help with this, she's going to be struggling with bills for a long time. I didn't say anything about what it cost or anything. And money came pouring in the door.
Wow.
And here's the weird part. When I sat down and totaled it all up, it was within something like $1.25 of the total amount.
Wow.
Even though I had never said anything to anyone. It was just one of
the
those.
way the universe works.
I know.
So
yeah,
beautiful.
It was quite incredible.
Wow. So I understand that you gave a TED Talk.
I did.
Which was kind of an interesting spin on a TED Talk. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. That was about a year ago and in my hometown of Concord, Massachusetts. And if you're familiar with TED Talks, which probably a lot of your viewers are, I love watching TED Talks because they're usually about 15 minutes of somebody talking and sharing a new theory they have or a new perspective, etc. So I decided to approach it a little bit differently. And what I ended up doing was creating a song for that event. So I did give a talk, about a 10-minute talk, but the whole talk was sort of leading up to and culminating in this song that I had created for that exact moment, for that exact event, for that exact gathering of people, that was all about the very specific concept of what it means to live in a town like Concord, where there are so many historical, powerful, energetic things that have happened, and what does that mean that we might choose to live there? But also the very universal concept of what is home? What does it mean? What does it feel like when you know that you are home?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so you just did that you created it in advance, or you did that on the spot, or a little bit of both?
I didn't do it on the spot. I'm not quite that good.
I've got this image of you.
No, I put some time and some heart into it, but it was really fun writing a song for a specific moment that I got to be in, because often I'm recording songs in the studio and then I'm not there when it's presented. I get to hear about it later, but it was really quite something to know that I was singing to the exact people
and
in my town at that moment.
Yeah. Exactly. Got it.
Yeah, it was a really powerful
cool.
experience, and it has turned out to be a great way to let more people know about what I do, because my business has taken a really lovely upturn ever since I gave that TED Talk, which is really nice.
Good, that's nice.
Yeah.
And you also met Steve Carell one time. You had a photo opportunity with him.
More than that.
More than that.
Steve Carell was in my improv troupe in college.
Oh, cool. So you know him.
Yeah. So the improv troupe that I was in, he was a senior when I was a freshman, and you have to try out and carefully handpicked and all that stuff. And then the first show that you ever do as a freshman is with the seniors. It's called Out with the Old and In with the New.
Oh, that's fun.
So the first show I ever did was with him and 3 other people that were in his class, and myself and 3 other people that were in my class. And it's funny that he's become so famous, because I see him about, I don't know, once every 5 or 10 years we have a reunion. So I got to do an improv show with him very recently, about a couple of years ago. But it's interesting because before he was a big old international superstar, what I loved about doing improv with him is that he was so good at making the other person look funny. So talk about empowering.
Yeah, really.
I think that's a lot of what it means to help empower other people, is to figure out, how can I help them be a better, funnier, more interesting, more heartfelt version of who they are? And maybe that's part of why he's gone so far.
Interesting. Yeah, and improv is working off of the other person.
That's right.
And it's great when you have a good actor on the other side.
Yep.
Makes your job a lot easier.
For sure.
So who else are some of your mentors or some of your inspirations that you've met along the way or that you've followed?
Well, I'm going to give you a funny answer. It's not so much about stars that are famous or something like that. I would say my inspiration really comes from whoever it is that decided to take a chance on me and is sitting across from me. Because what I have found is that every person, if you stop and really take them in, is an amazing person. And we live in a culture at a time in history where we're all kind of moving pretty fast. And it's a luxury to have a job, basically, where I get to stop the whole entire world, light a couple candles, take a deep breath, and just take in one person and what's going on for them. And you know, I dug as deeply as I could for the first 2 albums of my own autobiographical stuff. But it's an astonishing gift when somebody says, I trust you, I'm going to open myself up to you, help me figure out what I'm trying to say.
Very fulfilling.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So before we wrap up, I have to ask you about your song, about the sisters, because I have 5 sisters myself. So this is something that's personal to me, and I know it can be challenging, but thank goodness we all are the best of friends. So I'd love to hear about your song.
Well, so there were 2 songs that I ended up writing, and the story around those, and I performed those too at this concert I was talking about. The story behind these is that, unlike maybe you and your sisters, my sister and I, although we were very close when we were young, kind of grew in different directions. And when I had reached the age of about 30 or so, I had this real confusion about why are we not closer with each other, and this aching feeling of I want to be more connected to this person, but whenever I would get around my sister, I would sort of go into a more superficial, act like I'm not hurting, act like I think we're already connected kind of a mode. So I sort of limped along like that through a good bit of my 30s, kind of missing her. She seemed to be doing okay without us being any closer. And it was actually my mother-in-law was visiting one time and said, well, why don't you write a song and send her a song? This is before I'd heavily gotten into doing a lot of commissioned work, so I guess maybe it was even longer ago than that. And so I did. I wrote and recorded a song that sort of said, I wonder what happened when we were younger, or I wonder what you see that I don't see, or what is it that causes, you're always there when I need you, but I don't quite know how to move any closer. And so, as you can imagine, it was very hard to write. I recorded it.
When it's that personal.
Yeah, and painful and sort of embarrassing, and she seemed to be doing fine without me, you know, so there's that sort of, ugh. And so I sent it to her. This is really before email even, so I just sent this recording in the mail, and a month went by, and I didn't hear anything.
Oh.
And finally this letter came, and the letter from my sister was so interesting, because as I read it and reread it and reread it, it was so clear that she was just standing on such a completely different piece of ground looking at this same thing. Like, how can the 2 of us look at this thing and have such different experiences about it? So I thought, well, I think I'll turn this letter into a song, because I only I'll take her letter and turn it into a song. So I did. And that took a while, but I really, more than anything I've ever done, I tried to just lift it and just move things around so it kind of rhymed and fit like a song. And
What was her...
Well, so I recorded that, and I mailed that to her, and I think it was another month of hearing nothing, and like, but when she finally wrote, she said, oh my gosh, I feel like I've written a song. This is what I feel. This is what I'm saying.
That's great.
And what she was in essence saying is, when I'm around something and it doesn't feel right, I just move away. I don't have a second thought about it. And I've often done that around you. I just, that doesn't quite feel right, so I just go over here. So the letter ended with saying, lately, it feels more okay. And that was however many years ago. I guess I'd have to stop and think, but maybe 15 years ago. And we vacation together now. We talk on the phone regularly. It's just a whole different relationship. And that was built one piece at a time. But for me, daring to be that vulnerable and say, I don't know how this works. Will you help me? Was what started the change.
And it kind of goes back to your biggest inspiration in the very beginning, who wrote Difficult Conversations, what it was?
Good point. That's exactly right. Yeah, that was one of the more difficult conversations that I ever had to have. And by difficult, I don't mean fighting and arguing, because we didn't have that.
No, but just
mean
emotion, not even really knowing what you're in touch with, what's really going on, what's the other person feeling or thinking.
That's it.
Sometimes we feel that they're thinking something, and it's not even that at all.
That's right.
That's what we do as humans. We create issues that don't exist almost.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
And that was a really fantastic way for me to open the door to a different way of being present with her, to be more brave, more vulnerable, and to have empowered myself.
Great. Okay, so before we wrap up, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
What advice would you give women who are trying to communicate something in their lives, or that are just any advice for women in general who want to create something in their lives for themselves? What would you give them?
I think, thinking about my own path, that I would say there is an experience that a lot of us have, which is we can sort of imagine something that we want to do or want to say, and we pull back a little bit. Oh, we tell ourselves stories. I can't really do that, or it would be too hard, etc. And in my experience, what I've found is when that feeling rises up, it's really okay to stay with that feeling. It's a very vulnerable feeling when we have something we want to do that we don't quite know how to do, that we've never done before, that we've never tried before. And in my old life, before I started doing this kind of work, I would pull back. I would say, I won't be super successful. I won't really know what I'm doing. I don't want to feel vulnerable. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to feel like a beginner. And I guess what I would say to anybody is, it takes courage to feel uncomfortable. It takes courage to dare to voice something that's awkward and new and unfinished and unclear. And the payoffs for doing it are phenomenal.
Great advice, wonderful advice. Well, thank you so much, Anna. We have
you.
Anna Huckabee Tull here with us today, and what an honor it's been to
Yeah,
sit
I've
and
loved
speak
it.
with you. Me too. And thank you to our viewers for watching. And we're going to leave you with a clip of Anna singing her song that it's called, the sister song, right? Called Amy's Response. Amy's your sister?
Yep.
Yep. So this is Amy's Response. Thanks for watching. Thank you.
Thinking about what you said makes me think about how little I think about the things you think about. Walking around with your words in my head, I don't think I'll sing about the things I think about. If it hurts, I'll move away. If it feels good, I'll stay. How you were made it hard to stay. Thinking about the distance we shared, I would not think about the things we do without. Maybe there was animosity there. I would not think about these things you sing about. It hurts, I'll move away. If it feels good, I stay. How you were made me move away. You do things like I could never do. Sometimes it eats at me, and sometimes I'm proud of you. I never wanted to compete with all the things you tried to be. You did not hurt or desert me. I've simply been who I have been. You look at things and you say, what could they become? I look at a thing and I say, there it is. It's already good enough. But if it hurts, I move away. If it feels good, I stay. And lately it
feels good.
Lately it feels good.
Lately it feels good.
Lately